A poor single dad takes job as a cleaner, never thought his millionaire CEO would fall for him first. The elevator doors slid open with a soft chime, revealing the pristine marble lobby of Harrison Industries. Marcus Thompson adjusted his grip on the red-handled mop, his weathered hands trembling slightly as he stepped into a world that felt as foreign as another planet. At 37, he had cleaned countless buildings, but nothing quite like this gleaming tower of success. His gray work uniform, with its orange safety stripes, felt heavier today. The fabric bore the honest stains of a man who had worked every menial job imaginable to keep food on the table for his 5-year-old daughter, Lily. The same little girl who now clutched her beloved stuffed rabbit, waiting in the lobby's plush seating area because her babysitter had canceled at the last minute. What Marcus didn't know was that his life was about to change forever, and the woman watching him from across the marble expanse would be the catalyst for everything. Eleanor Harrison stood in her ivory silk blouse and navy-tailored pants, her arms crossed as she observed this unusual scene. At 35, she had inherited Harrison Industries from her late father and transformed it into a thriving corporation. She had graduated Harvard Business School at 24, married and divorced by 30, and built walls around her heart that seemed impenetrable. But something about this man's gentle interaction with the child caught her attention. "Daddy, when will you be done?" Lily asked, her voice echoing softly in the vast lobby. She wore a pale purple dress that brought out the warmth in her brown eyes, so much like her father's. Marcus knelt beside his daughter, his voice tender despite his exhaustion. "Just a few hours, sweetheart. Mrs. Patterson said she'd pick you up soon, remember?" Eleanor found herself moving closer, her heels clicking softly against the marble. She had intended to leave through the executive entrance, but curiosity rooted her feet to the spot. At 35, she had everything money could buy, yet watching this simple exchange between father and daughter stirred something long dormant in her chest. "I brought my coloring book," Lily announced, pulling crayons from her small backpack. "Look, Daddy, I made this one for you." The pride that lit up Marcus's face was unmistakable. "That's beautiful, Princess. You're such a good artist." Eleanor's breath caught. When was the last time someone had looked at her achievements with such pure, uncomplicated joy? Her own success felt hollow compared to the richness she witnessed in this moment. As Marcus began his work, pushing the mop with practiced efficiency, Eleanor noticed something extraordinary. Despite being only 37, he moved with the dignity of someone who had learned to find meaning in honest labor. He didn't just clean, he cared for the space as if it belonged to him. "Excuse me," Eleanor found herself saying before she could reconsider. Marcus looked up, startled. His first instinct was to step back, to make himself smaller in the presence of someone who clearly belonged in this world of power suits and corner offices. Even at 37, he still felt like the young man who had dropped out of college when Lily was born. "Ma'am," he said respectfully, not recognizing the woman who employed him. "Your daughter," Eleanor continued, gesturing toward Lily, who was now coloring quietly. "She's lovely." "How old is she?" Something in Eleanor's tone put Marcus at ease. There was no condescension, only genuine warmth from this woman who looked closer to his age than he had expected. "5, ma'am. Her name's Lily." "Lily," Eleanor repeated, as if tasting the name. "Like the flower. It suits her." A comfortable silence settled between them. Eleanor found herself studying Marcus more closely. At 37, his face bore the lines of someone who had weathered responsibility early, but his eyes held a kindness that seemed undiminished by hardship. "I'm Eleanor," she said finally. "Marcus Thompson. I just started working here today." "Welcome to Harrison Industries, Marcus." The irony wasn't lost on Eleanor that she was welcoming someone to her own company, but something about this moment felt significant, as if they were meeting on equal ground despite their vastly different circumstances. Over the following weeks, Eleanor found herself taking different routes through the building, always timing her departures to coincide with Marcus's evening shift. At 35, she had built her life around routine and control, but these encounters felt like stolen moments of authenticity. She learned that Marcus had been laid off from his factory job 6 months earlier, that he was studying for his business degree through online classes, and that every decision he made revolved around giving Lily a better future. She discovered that he read to his daughter every night, often falling asleep with a book in his hands after working double shifts. What surprised Eleanor most was how much she looked forward to these brief encounters. Marcus had a way of seeing the world that reminded her of dreams she had abandoned in pursuit of success. Despite being only 2 years older than him, she felt decades removed from his genuine warmth and optimism. One evening, Eleanor arrived to find Lily sitting alone in the lobby, tears streaming down her face. "Sweetheart, what's wrong?" Eleanor asked, abandoning all pretense of casual interest. "Daddy's sick," Lily whispered. "Mrs. Patterson brought me here, but Daddy's in the bathroom and he won't come out. He's making scary sounds." Eleanor's heart clenched. Without hesitation, she made her way to the employee restroom, where she could indeed hear Marcus retching violently. "Marcus," she called through the door. "It's Eleanor. Do you need help?" The sound stopped. After a long moment, the door opened slowly. Marcus emerged, pale and shaky, clearly running a high fever. "I'm sorry, ma'am. I'll be fine. Just need a minute." "You need a doctor," Eleanor said firmly. "And don't call me ma'am. We're the same generation, for crying out loud." Before Marcus could protest, Eleanor was making phone calls. Her personal physician, her driver, arrangements for Lily. In her world of corporate efficiency, problems got solved quickly and thoroughly. At the emergency room, as Marcus slept fitfully in the hospital bed, Eleanor sat with Lily in the waiting area. The 5-year-old had curled up against her side, exhausted from worry. "Is Daddy going to be okay?" Lily asked for the 10th time. "He's going to be fine," Eleanor assured her, stroking the child's hair with a tenderness that surprised them both. "Your daddy is very strong. He works so hard," Lily said sleepily. "Sometimes he cries when he thinks I'm not looking. But he always makes pancakes on Sunday mornings, and he lets me put way too much syrup on them." Eleanor's throat tightened. At 35, she had achieved everything she thought she wanted, but when had she last made pancakes? When had she last prioritized joy over productivity? The next morning brought revelations that would change everything. The doctor's tests revealed that Marcus had been working himself into dangerous exhaustion, his 37-year-old body finally rebelling against months of inadequate sleep and poor nutrition. "Mr. Thompson," the doctor explained, "you're young enough to recover quickly, but you need rest. Real rest. And proper meals. Your daughter needs her father healthy." That afternoon, as Eleanor drove them home to Marcus's modest apartment, she made a decision that would have shocked her board of directors. "Marcus, I have a proposition for you." He looked at her warily. In his experience, propositions from wealthy people rarely worked out well for people like him. "I need a facilities manager for the main building. Someone who understands that a clean, well-maintained environment affects everyone who works there. The job comes with health insurance, a living wage, and reasonable hours." Marcus stared at her. "Eleanor, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but I can't accept charity." "It's not charity," she said quietly. "It's recognizing talent when I see it. Do you know what I noticed about you that first night?" Marcus shook his head. "You didn't just clean our building. You cared for it. There's a difference, and it's rarer than you might think." The truth, which Eleanor kept to herself, was far more complex. At 35, she had built walls around her heart after her divorce. But this 37-year-old single father had somehow found cracks in those defenses. She had fallen for his gentle strength, his unwavering devotion to his daughter, his ability to find dignity in any honest work. 6 months later, Marcus had not only transformed the building's maintenance operations but had also nearly completed his business degree. Eleanor had quietly arranged for educational support and flexible scheduling, watching with pride as he embraced opportunities he had never dared to dream of. Their relationship had evolved slowly, built on mutual respect and growing affection. They took walks in the park with Lily, shared quiet dinners, and discovered that despite their different backgrounds, they wanted similar things: security, love, and the simple pleasure of being truly known by another person. The first time Marcus Kissed Eleanor. It was in the very lobby where they had first met. Lily was at a sleepover, and they had been talking about their hopes for the future when the moment simply felt right. I never expected this, Eleanor whispered against his lips. Neither did I, Marcus replied. But I'm grateful for it. Their wedding was small and perfect, held in Eleanor's garden with 6-year-old Lily as the flower girl. The little girl had worried that Eleanor might try to replace her relationship with her father, but instead found herself with someone who understood that love multiplies rather than divides. The biggest surprise came a year later, when Eleanor announced her plans to restructure Harrison Industries. She had decided to implement a profit-sharing program and create opportunities for employee advancement that would have seemed radical to previous generations of Harrisons. Are you sure about this? Marcus asked as they sat on their porch, watching 7-year-old Lily practice piano in the living room. I'm 36 years old, Eleanor said, taking his hand. I've spent over a decade building a company. I want to spend the next decade building something that matters to more than just shareholders. The twist that no one saw coming was revealed at the company's annual meeting. Eleanor stood at the podium, Marcus beside her in a perfectly tailored suit that he now wore with confidence. Ladies and gentlemen, Eleanor began, I want to tell you about the Harrison-Thompson Family Initiative. The audience listened intently, expecting another corporate announcement. This program will provide education and career advancement opportunities for working parents in our company. But what you don't know is that it's being funded by an idea my husband developed. She turned to Marcus, her eyes bright with pride. Marcus noticed that we were spending enormous amounts on disposal fees for office furniture and equipment during renovations. Instead, we now refurbish everything and sell it, with all proceeds funding educational scholarships and childcare support for our employees. The applause was enthusiastic, but Marcus only had eyes for his wife. The best part, Eleanor continued, is that this program addresses something I never understood before I became a stepmother. Working parents need more than just jobs. They need flexibility, support, and the knowledge that their children's futures matter to their employers. In the audience, Lily beamed with pride. At 7 years old, she had already shown remarkable intelligence and creativity, but more importantly, she had learned that families could be built in the most unexpected ways. Later that evening, as they drove home through the city lights, Lily fell asleep in the back seat clutching a program from the meeting. Do you ever regret it? Marcus asked Eleanor as they pulled into their driveway. Changing everything for us? Eleanor looked at their house, where warm light spilled from the windows and she could see their new puppy waiting by the door. She thought of the life she had built with this man and his remarkable daughter, of Sunday morning pancakes and evening piano practice and quiet conversations that lasted until dawn. I was successful before, she said simply. But I wasn't happy. There's a difference. As they carried a sleeping Lily inside, Marcus reflected on the journey that had brought them here. At 37, he had entered that gleaming lobby with nothing but determination and love for his daughter. Now, at 38, he was someone's husband, part of a family he had never dared to imagine, with a future bright with possibility. Eleanor tucked Lily into bed while Marcus made tea, a nightly ritual that still filled him with quiet amazement. 2 years ago, he had been a man cleaning offices after midnight. Now he was a facilities manager, a husband, and someone who mattered in ways that had nothing to do with money or status. What are you thinking about? Eleanor asked, finding him standing in their kitchen, 2 steaming mugs in his hands. Second chances, Marcus said. How they can come from the most unexpected places. Eleanor accepted her tea and settled beside him at their kitchen table, the same table where Lily did her homework and they planned their days and shared their dreams. You know what I learned from you, she said. Marcus raised an eyebrow. That being 35 doesn't mean you have to have everything figured out. Sometimes the best discoveries happen when you're brave enough to let life surprise you. Outside their window, the city continued its restless motion, full of people working late shifts and dreaming of better tomorrows. But inside their home, a family created from the most unlikely circumstances had found something precious and rare. The peace that comes from being exactly where you belong, with exactly the people who see you for who you truly are. The red-handled Mop that had started it all was now displayed in Marcus's office as a reminder that every ending is also a beginning. And every act of kindness ripples outward in ways we may never fully understand. As Eleanor and Marcus sat together in comfortable silence, they both understood that the greatest love stories aren't about finding someone perfect, but about finding someone who helps you become the best version of yourself. And sometimes, if you're very fortunate, that person finds you in the most ordinary moment and transforms it into something extraordinary. The last thing Lily heard before drifting off to sleep was the sound of her parents' quiet laughter drifting down the hallway, a sound that meant home and safety and love that would last forever. At 7 years old, she already understood that the best families weren't necessarily the ones you were born into, but the ones that chose to love you completely.